Hello and welcome to Family Law and More. We are your hosts. I'm Lisa Edmonds.
I'm Isabel Hawkins.
And I'm Bella Tate.
And today we are joined by Ben Chieffo from CYFOR. CYFOR are a leading provider of digital forensics and corporate forensic investigations. Ben, welcome to our podcast and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So Ben, would you like to tell us a bit about yourself and a bit about CYFOR?
Certainly. My background is law enforcement. That's where I started my investigative experience. I worked for Lancashire Police for 18 and a half years. I was a detective for, give or take, the last 10 years of my service there. And I spent a large portion of that last 10 years in digital investigation, managing cases from small to medium to large, from the minor offences up to fraud and right the way up to serious assaults and attempted murders. And my role was to look at cases, look at investigations and see what digital opportunities there were in that world, in that particular case. And so I'm used to looking at what options are out there. Are there device options? Are there cell site options and so on? And then I've now moved to CYFOR as a cell site team leader. So I focus my work mostly on cell site work. However, I am also involved in some digital forensic work as well. And I'm experienced in what goes on at CYFOR. And so at CYFOR, we do offer exactly what I've just described there. So any case, any investigation you have, any matter you have, we can give you ideas and opportunities that are available in terms of mobile phones, cloud accounts, social media accounts, and of course, cell site analysis as well.
Thanks, Ben. So you mentioned cell site analysis. That's something that we do hear about in the family courts when we get phone analysis. I don't think I'm just speaking for myself when I say I think a lot of us don't know the ins and outs of what exactly is cell site analysis. Could you give us a little bit of a whistle-stop tour of what that is and how it can help us?
Certainly. The beauty of cell site analysis is this is data that is held by a mobile phone network. So, for example, you might be with a network EE. That's what your mobile phone provider is. EE are bound in law to retain certain data for a minimum of 12 months. So that gives you then 12 months to be able to go to EE and say, hello, please can I have this data under the correct lawful power, but can I have this data, please? And that means, of course, that if the mobile phone is missing or lost or locked and can't be unlocked for whatever reason, then we've always got the opportunity to go to the provider in question and obtain that data. And what that data will contain is records of communication. So we're not talking about social media discussions. They're not in there. But if you're sending or receiving a text message, it's in there. If you're making a telephone call or receiving a telephone call, it's in there. There is some other information in there as well, but in terms of identifiable communication, that is in there, and that is retained for 12 months. And also what's in there are details of the device that is used, and as well then, details of what cell. And when I say cell, I mean the piece of equipment that your phone wirelessly connects to. Let's keep it simple. Well, that's where the word cell site comes on, because there are these cell sites all across the country making sure that our mobile phones work. And that information can then be deciphered and examined, and we can ascertain then, has party one communicated with party two? Have they used a device that we know about, or indeed a device that we don't know about? And where generally were they when they have made that communication or received that communication? So we've got communication taking place, device being used, and general area where they were. And we've got 12 months to obtain that. So it's a really good investigative tool from the early stages of investigation right the way up to court processes. Here you go, here's a finished product proving that the communication took place, for example.
That's really interesting. And so when a client says, I've lost my phone or it got broken and smashed, we can still obtain data. As long as what information would we need? Just the mobile number in the network? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. All you need is a mobile phone number. It helps knowing the network if you can obtain it from whoever's giving you the telephone number itself. But if you come to us at CYFOR and say, here's this phone number, help, then that's fine. We can help you. We can tell you what network it's on. We can find that information out for you. And in terms of then obtaining the data, you've sort of got two channels really. One is via law enforcement, who've got particular powers under the Investigatory Powers Act to apply for the data. And the police do this up and down the country every day. It's happening all the time. But if there isn't police involvement, you can still obtain a court order yourselves for a family court matter And we've got some wording that can assist you there to make sure that everything that you need to ask for is asked for. And then we can give you that information. You can get the order, hopefully, from the court. We'll give you the wording to put on the order. We'll say it's EE or it's O2 or Vodafone or whoever. And then that order can then be served on the company in question. And then, hey presto, your data will come through, a week or two later.
Brilliant. Yeah, that was my next question, because I seem to remember it has to be a separate order specifically to the phone provider, doesn't it? The network provider.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And there are some complications, but again, don't worry about the complications. We will assist you with the complications. When I say complications, I mean things like I've said O2, I've said Vodafone, I've said EE, and there's a network 3. Someone says, what about Tesco? What about GiftGaff? What about Leica? All these are the companies, Asda, they've got their own branding, but they piggyback other networks. We can decipher that for you. We can help you with that and say, don't worry, I know it says Asda on it, but it's not Asda, it's this network and it's fine, and we can help you with that. And something that you mentioned sprung to mind, somebody says their phone broke 2 weeks ago. Well, the call data will actually show you whether or not the phone broke 2 weeks ago, won't it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a very good point. Wow.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's interesting. But 90 minutes before court started, you were making a phone call to your mum or whoever. So, and this is the thing about digital data, whether it's cell site, whether it's the device, whether it's cloud, whatever it may be, the data doesn't lie. The data is there and the data will tell us the truth. It doesn't mean it's a witch hunt. I don't mean that. It just is the truth. So if someone is telling the truth, it will show that they're telling the truth. Yeah. But of course, conversely, if someone is not telling the truth, it will show that they're not telling the truth. So that's the beauty of it. It's a sort of untouched resource.
Quite objective.
Indeed.
Can I just, couple of questions, just in terms of practice. Do you have good cooperation then from network providers in terms of turnaround of them passing on the data that you require?
Well, the networks have got a service level agreement themselves. That's a sort of an internal per network. They will comply with law enforcement applications under the Investigatory Powers Act, or indeed under the orders served by people like yourselves, or for family court matters, if there's a court order served. Our experience is very, very positive and very, very good. But they don't come to us, of course, because it's yourselves, for example, who serve the order. Our experience is their service level agreement is usually sort of 2 weeks-ish to come back with the data.
Okay.
And actually our experience is they're very good and they're much quicker than that. I won't give you the promises that it always is.
That's quick
they're
anyway.
Really good. They're really, really good. Yeah. All very positive. Very, very positive. We've had issues occasionally with data as well. Like, this data doesn't seem right. Oh, sorry, no problem. Here you go. Very quick turnarounds. Really positive. Really, really positive.
Well, our waiting times in family law are usually well above 2 weeks. So that's quite quick for
ideal.
us.
Yeah. And especially if you get the order, you serve the order, you're waiting for the data. Bear in mind, we can't do anything until we have those call data results from the network. So we are at a standstill until we get that. So it's good because then we get it quickly and we can crack on and get the work done.
Well, in prepping for this episode, Isabel and I are both interested in sort of true crime and podcasts and stuff. And when we're talking about cell sites and sort of pinging off towers, we were talking about the podcast Serial. I'm not sure if you've ever heard it, but it's about a murder case in the US that was hinged massively on cell sites pinging in the late 90s, early noughties.
Yeah, that's
so
early.
Actually, it was very early in the technology, and I'd have to imagine it's come on quite a bit since then.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And it is a bit different in America to the way that some of the cell sites work and the way that some of the mobile phones work ever so slightly. But it does feel from the research that I do and the conversations that I have that, certainly in America it is expanding more. But it's been there a long time in this country and it is getting used more. And certainly in family law, it is an opportunity to just get that untainted view. There's quite a lot of my phone's missing, my phone's broken, my phone's lost, as you alluded to. As I sort of joke when I present about this thing, it doesn't matter if the phone is on fire on a raft going across the North Sea. It doesn't matter because the data,
about the phone,
exactly, the data is with the network. It's there for 12 months. It's a long time. Okay, we're not going to get the content of the messages. But if there's communication taking place, it's there.
Yeah.
Gives you a start point.
Absolutely.
And is there any distinction in terms of retrieving that data if it's contract versus pay as you go?
No, absolutely not. It is simply quote unquote communications data. And the Investigatory Powers Act 2016 indicates that information has got to be held by the network for a minimum of 12 months. So they retain that for 12 months. And so
that's good to know. I didn't know.
Yeah, it's really good. And, the location information, things like, if we're talking about a couple, let's just pick an example, a couple that shouldn't be together and allegedly meeting up when they shouldn't be. Well, if they are meeting up, we can look at that, the location information. We would need the call data records for the phone of the man and the woman, if that's what we're talking about. And we would need both of their records. But those records would indicate that they were perhaps apart for a period of time. And then suddenly, every second Sunday or every other Sunday, you seem to be together in a town where neither of you live,
right?
For example. So we can look at that co-location analysis is what we would call that.
And you were saying that these sort of cell sites would ping for phone calls and for text messages, but
Yes.
would it for like a WhatsApp message or something like that?
In theory, yes. So whenever our mobile phone connects to the internet, what we need to do to use our SIM card is carry out what we call a data session. There's a few different terminologies, but it's a data session that our phone's doing. So if we are using our phone and we're not connected to Wi-Fi, then we need a way to connect to the internet. And that connection to the internet is recorded.
Okay.
The downside is, of course, we don't know
What that meant.
the internet
You could have
activity
been
is.
searching on Google or whatever.
Absolutely. You could be doing anything. Or indeed, you could be doing nothing and your phone is doing something you don't know it.
Right.
So it doesn't necessarily
receiving a
mean-
message or something.
Yeah. Or if it's an Android handset, it could be the Google servers that are being communicated with just to check in for an update or you know, things like that.
Okay.
An email's being pushed to you. That's nothing to do with you. You haven't engaged with your phone. Your phone just bings and says, "Oh, you've got an email there." So that activity is there, and that is the sort of third data type that's in this communication data, the communication data records. And the newer the phone, you know, as we look to the future, we're looking at smartphones. Smartphones are heavily app-based, aren't they? Let's get it right. People don't often send text messages. I got a text message yesterday from somebody. I couldn't believe it. Someone sent me a text message because it's all about things like WhatsApp and other applications like that. So all of that communication is via the internet. And if you're not using a Wi-Fi connection, you're going to need this data session. And so the more modern the phone, and as we move with technology, there are just going to be a lot more data sessions in the call data records than there were, say, 5 years ago or 10 years ago and so on.
Right.
That would be the same, presumably, with iMessage.
Absolutely.
So that would show up on the analysis.
That will just be a GPRS session, an internet session, excuse me. Yeah.
It's interesting what you say about how quick the timescales are, actually, because I think although phone analysis is used in the family court, it's not used a lot. It's not sort of something you see on every case, nor should it be. But I think people are put off sometimes because they think it's going to cause delay or it's going to be very expensive. So it's interesting to hear that actually it probably won't cause that much delay. And in terms of the cost, is there a cost of going directly to the networks?
No. And, you know, hand on heart, I don't know exactly what the cost is, but I from memory, it's not astronomical. You know, we're not talking thousands of pounds or anything like that. And I certainly know that when the police go for this application, for the data, there is a charge because I've seen the charges listed before and they weren't thousands and thousands of pounds. And as time's gone on, it's become cheaper and cheaper. That's what I've experienced. So no, I don't think it is particularly expensive. Forgive me, I don't know the exact amount.
No, not at all.
However, the process itself of obtaining the data, the process, isn't very long. Doesn't take long. You know, the turnaround times are quick. And then in terms of us looking at the data, it's not going to take us long to process that. And I mean, in reality, when we look at a family case, we're usually looking, has party one communicated with party two at all? So we can do that pretty quickly by looking at the call data records. And we don't need both call data records if we're doing that. So for example, if it was you and I that were allegedly not meant to be seeing each other and communicating with each other, my call data records will say if I've rung you or you've rung me. Your call data records will say if I've rung you or you've rung me. So we don't need both. Yep. So there's your cost halved straight away. You don't need both. If we're just looking at communication, we can just see that through one of the call data records. If we want to see if the parties could have been together, we will need both call data records because my call data records will say where my phone is and your call data records will say where your phone is. So we would need both there. But again, that process of analysis wouldn't take us too long. And in terms of the turnaround time after you get the data, we can turn that around pretty quickly as well.
So Ben, in private law proceedings in particular, parties often rely on screenshots of messages and they say that they say came from another party, another person.
Yes.
And what's fascinating about those messages is that they can actually be fabricated, which is I'm not sure something that everyone is aware of. And this can be fairly convincing in their fabrication. So can you tell us a little bit more about that and how we as practitioners can be guarded towards it? Can we? What are we looking for?
Definitely, yes. Yeah, you really must be guarded. I mean, if, for any of the listeners, if you just open a Google window and search fake message generator, you'll be surprised at just how many searches turn up. You'll be page after page after page. And recently when I did this, it was maybe 3 or 4 months ago to produce some slides for a presentation, I saw that it was on the first page, maybe the 5th or 6th result. When I clicked on that, not only was it a fake message generator, but I could specify WhatsApp, LinkedIn, Tinder,
wow,
text message on an iPhone, text message on an Android, and other platforms. It wasn't just fake message generator. It was what would you like it to be? No, we can make whatever you want. You want to make it? Oh, it's really easy. I could make a fake image that you I've just met today has sent me a message threatening me saying, "Don't ever come here again." Anything at all. So it's really that scary, and it is really that easy to make. So what I would say is, if you get a piece of evidence that is a printout, a screenshot, a printout of some messages, just tread carefully. We need to be verifying that those messages are real and original. So if we talk about a text message, let's talk about that as the easier of the options, really. If a text message is being sent by me, allegedly, and there's a screenshot of a message that I've allegedly sent, a text message that I've originally sent, then my network provider, Vodafone, EE, whoever, will have a record of that message has been sent. It won't have a record of the content, of course, but the fact that I've sent that text message should be there in the call data records. So we can look at the call data records to see if that text message has been sent. Also, then, we can look at the phone of the person who's received the message, physically examine that in a digital forensic environment and ascertain if those messages are present, or that message or those messages are present on the phone of the recipient. Likewise, we can look at my phone, the sender, and do a digital forensic process on my phone to see if it's been sent. So you've got a couple of options there, really, for a text message, just a simple text message. When it comes to a message of another type, be that a Facebook message or indeed a WhatsApp or a Snapchat or something like that, okay, so it becomes a little bit more challenging, but it's still a case of we can examine the device of the sender, just like the text message, or the device of the recipient, just like a text message. There is a third option for those platforms, though, is that we could log into the account with consent and with the username and password. So a few caveats there, but we could log into the account and see, are the messages there in the sender's account online? So we don't have to have the device here, do we? We can log in, go onto the internet, log into the account of the sender or the recipient. Also, we could do something called an account download. So all companies now are required to say, right, Ben, we've got all this data on you, right? It's my account. I want you to send me all the data you've got on that account, please, on my account with my details. No problem. Give us an hour. We'll bundle it all up and we'll email it you. That account download for all of these platforms will usually have either a record of the fact that the communication has taken place or indeed the content of the message. Again, a few caveats. It depends when it comes to digital, I'm afraid. They could be deleted, couldn't they? They could be deleted. They could be deleted by the sender and deleted by the recipient. And if that's the case, depending on the platform, we may not be able to evidence it, but at least you can try.
Yeah.
You can try, can't you? And if someone says, they sent me one message and it was horrible and it was deleted, someone might have deleted it after they've taken a screenshot. Is that possible? Yeah, it's possible. But then you can start looking at the circumstances, can't you? If there are 50, if there are 100, it just so happens that all of these messages aren't here. Or why is it that there's 10 messages are here, but the 11th, which is the important one, is the one that's deleted that you're saying is here? It's about putting all those pieces together. And we can help you with that in our report. So at least you can say, these are the facts. And then it can be down to the court making a decision based on the facts.
Yeah. And I think in private law, the easiest filter for, identifying if something is fabricated or not is the other party. They will say, I never sent that message.
Absolutely.
Or whatever. And then if there is a confusion around whether or not it's a text message or WhatsApp, because I do think most communication doesn't happen by text message anymore.
Absolutely.
It's much more WhatsApp and all the other platforms.
Indeed.
Could people contact you to ask the questions of, here's what we have, can you help?
Yes, absolutely. And all of these topics we're talking about, and we're obviously partway through. I would encourage anybody who's got questions, pick up the phone, give us a call or send us an email. and come to us and say, I've got this. What am I going to do with it? What ideas have you got? I think I can do X and Y.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? And we say, actually, yes, you can do X and Y, but you can also do Z. And you can also do A, B, and C. You might not be aware, but you can do this. Come to us. We can brainstorm it. We can solve the problem. I know that there's my colleagues in a digital forensic department at CYFOR that have conversations with clients and do Teams calls and screen shares. I've done it, as of my colleagues in the cell site team. It's sometimes just easier to have 15 minutes on a Teams call with a screen share. Here's my document. What do you make of this? Right. Well, I'm suspicious about this. You see this here? Can I just take control of your screen a minute? Yeah. You see this here with my mouse? Right. That is alarming and that doesn't look right. I think we need to look at that. Oh, right. Thank you. And that there's not, it's like sitting down next to somebody, but obviously, we're covering the entire country. Let's use technology. And in 10 or 15 minutes, we've got the problem solved to answer our questions and a direction to go in, because that's what we need, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I've seen phone analysis before where you kind of get everything and it's a huge amount of data.
Yeah.
And can be quite difficult as a practitioner to navigate and to highlight what's important. Is there a request that you recommend we make to receive the information in the most sort of navigable way?
Yeah, I think the key is the more information you can give us, the more targeted we can be in our analysis, and then the more targeted we can create our product, or the more tailored. We can tailor our final report to contain one text message if you want it to be. Do you see what I mean? So as narrow as the record of one call. If you want it to be all text messages and all calls that have taken place between date 1 and date 2, as well as any search terms that may have happened on the internet browser, then we can do that as well. So it's about tailoring our final product to what it is that you are desiring. I mean, when it comes to family court as well, there are often set boundaries, aren't there, about what it is. You can't just go, right, go fish. Just give us everything on the phone. We have to be targeted around what the court is instructing as well. But the more information you give to us, the better a product and the less, I suppose, what I would call guff that we can put in that report. You don't want to have to look through 50,000 pictures if what you're looking for are some photographs that have taken place between the 1st and the 10th of June that are in the camera roll, that are taken on the phone or perhaps received via social media. Right, no problem. We can tailor that down. We will filter out all those thumbnail pictures, the thousands of pictures that you don't want. We will tailor it to exactly what you want. But by giving us exactly what it is that you need and being clear about that, we can then be clear about what we give back to you. And I think that goes back to having a conversation with us, just keeping that communication. We'll aim to keep that communication clear with yourselves. You can be clear about what you need with us, and we can have that good engagement and then hopefully create you something that is a report that is court ready and good to go. And you can just say, thank you, there it is. And it can just be submitted and it's accurate. We can tailor it in other ways as well, though. So you may say, well, I do need something court ready, but what I also could do with doing is a bit of a list of all the messages, for example, so I can filter those myself on Excel, because I'm okay at looking at Excel and I know how to use filters. No problem. We can give it you that way if you want. It could be, I'm actually quite technical. I want to make my own reports. Can you create me a little program that will help me make my own reports? We can do that as well. So we do have a breadth of opportunities there as to how we provide it to you. But yeah, if you want to keep it simple, we can keep it simple as well.
Thanks.
Okay, Ben, can I ask you about the cloud? Obviously, from sort of running a chambers and also from an individual practitioner's point of view, we're rightly so heavily regulated around GDPR, and we're now living in a world where we are paperless, so we're holding confidential information and data on the cloud. And I think something that seems to be of increasing concern to our regulatory bodies is about data theft or identity theft. So in terms of transposing those concerns into the sort of cases we deal with, is that something that you've come across more recently? Is that something that is on the increase?
We are seeing bits of that, yes. And I've seen it in my previous work in law enforcement, and I've seen it in work at CYFOR. And the beauty of the cloud accounts, there's just so much data. And I think I would say, well, the first thing is cloud. What is the cloud? And the cloud is just someone else's computer. So I think let's just get that buzzword out of the way. Because what's the cloud? What's the cloud? It's just another person's computer. That's all it is. It might be in this country. It might be in a different country. And that's holding all of our data. So if I've got, I don't know, like a Facebook account, then Facebook have got a lot of information on me. Details of my logins, details of the devices that I'm logged in on, as well as all the other information like photographs, contacts, communications, and so on. And that information in there is really valuable and can be used to examine details of the example you've given there. So when was it last logged into? What devices are currently logged in? Was there a login in this with this particular IP address, which just means an internet address? And where was that located in terms of the country? So I've had it before where someone's tried to break into an online account of mine and they're in like, I don't know, Venezuela or something, just a different continent. Right, okay, that's a flag. That's not me. Something's wrong. Someone's got my password or someone's broken into my account, whatever it may be. So there is a vast amount of information in a cloud account, including login details. So login history. Yeah. So if there is an indication that maybe, I don't know, my ex-partner's logged into my Facebook account and is posting pictures and posting messages to people, it's not me. It must be my ex-partner. Right, well, let's download the account because we've got consent, because it's at this point, the person in question who's saying it's not me, they give the login credentials, which we can then use, download the account details, and then dig into that and see, right, well, there was a login on this date, there was a login on this date, there was a login on this date. This one in the middle, what's that? They don't own an iPhone, they own an Android, but it says here it's an iPhone that's logged in. Right, there's our concerning incident. And then it can be a case of going to the police then, can't it, at that point? We're on that cusp of, is it family law only? Does it involve the police? But some work can be done initially, which will then equip the police and give them the evidence to then go and do more and perhaps make an arrest and look at Computer Misuse Act offences and so on. But that early investigation can be done by us in a way that I've described there. And if I may talk about the cloud a little bit more, there is a vast amount of information in there. So if I alluded to it earlier on, the messages and things that may have taken place and may have been sent. So there is often a backup of a lot of information from our devices and from our accounts in our cloud accounts. So I've got an Android handset and I've got a Google account. My Google account is full of a lot of information, including things like location history, where I've been, where my devices have been, indications of things that I've searched for. And when we talk about family law, when we talk about things like with children and things like that, what has been searched for around things like non-accidental injury or medicine being given to children and things like that, and key things that have been searched for in all that history. The device, I've lost it. Well, that's okay, because we can get into the account. If we can have your credentials to get into your Google account, for example, we can have a look at the search history. And has there been anything concerning in there? And location history in Google I've used in police investigations numerous times, and there's a huge amount of information in there, a huge amount of data. So there's a lot of opportunities in cloud.
Wow, this is really interesting information. It's also making me very nervous about my own digital footprint.
If any of our listeners, if any of you out there have got a Google account, Google the phrase Google takeout and take out your own Google, like do a Google takeout, as in like a pizza takeaway. Yeah. That's it. So if you do a Google takeout on your own account, you'll be surprised at just how much data is in there. And it can be, can be gigabytes and gigabytes of data depending on how long you've had your account, but all the location history. I can go on mine and I can see where I've been for the last 10, 12 years. Yeah. Literally.
I mean, Google Maps gives you little reviews of where you've been in the last month. And I was like, well, of course you know that because I use Google Maps all the time, but I'm sort of terrified that you know that.
Yeah. It can be used for good, not just bad.
So we've had a lot of recent changes, and I know we've already talked about WhatsApp, but a little bit more about WhatsApp in particular, being able to delete messages, and the new feature that is being rolled out, not yet implemented at time of recording, of being able to edit your messages. Do you have any thoughts on that sort of a change coming in? Because when I heard it announced on the radio, I was like, oh no, that's going to make my job a lot harder.
What I will say about that is they are going to tell the user that it's been edited. So there will be a record of the fact that the editing has taken place. So when you see a message, you will know it's been edited. So that's the first point of call. So at least it's not, is this the first message that was sent? You're going to know if it's not the first message that's sent. But what they are saying, Meta, who own WhatsApp, is they're saying they're not going to retain a copy of the original message. And whether or not that actually that information is inside a database somewhere on the phone is yet to be confirmed, but we are eagerly awaiting that. So we're just on the cusp of that, because obviously we're just in that rollout process at time of recording, as you say. But what I will say is that there's an awful lot of information inside these databases that isn't necessarily banded around in public and isn't talked about, on front pages of papers and so on and so forth and on news headlines. So whether or not we're going to be able to see the original message prior to the amendment is to be seen. But what I will say is a lot of other providers are doing the editing messaging function. iMessage has been doing it a little while for a longer period than 15 minutes as well, which is what they're doing on WhatsApp in the first phase. Other providers like Telegram and so on, they're all doing editing messages. So it isn't brand new, if you see what I mean, but it might be a bit of a shock to the system for those of us that are not used to that in WhatsApp. And obviously there's so many users worldwide of that. So we'll see how that pans out.
Oh, I just can foresee the gaslighting that's going to go on with that feature.
Yeah.
That's not what I said.
No. Well, the beauty of that is it's 15 minutes to change it.
Yeah.
So it's not at the moment. So that's not too long. But you're right. You are right that is obviously a possibility. And that's where we can come in. And we can evidence messages for you to say, well, actually, this is the message, but it was edited. So we'll be able to highlight the ones that are edited. And the ones that are originals will be able to do that.
Yeah, and I have to imagine the family courts are going to take any edited message with a massive pinch of salt.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And especially if we're not going to be able to show you what the original was. Yeah.
Ben, fascinating stuff. Maybe you'll come and join us for another episode, because it sounds as though this is going to be changing at pace.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Happy to whenever you want me.
So we ask each of our guests to conclude an episode by playing our game of Roll That Dice. Are you up for it?
Why not?
So you can see the dice, grab it.
Quick fire. I have that. I'm ready to go on that. So
no pressure.
This is just a quick game where I'm going to ask you some questions and you've got to give us your quick fire response to my quick fire questions.
Okay.
Ready? If you were a biscuit, what would you be?
Hobnob. Chocolate hobnob.
You knew very quickly. That's what color is your kitchen?
Cream.
Favorite artist?
Painter or music?
Both.
Probably Monet painting, artist, musical. Ooh. Let's go the Eagles.
Diverse.
Favorite fast food?
Pizza.
What's your spirit animal?
Bear.
If you were to cast yourself in the TV show Friends, who would you be?
Joey.
Love it.
Ideal day off?
Ideal day off. Mixing music.
Favorite drink at the end of the day?
Wine.
Least favorite food?
Prawns.
And in a zombie apocalypse, what's your weapon of choice?
Desert Eagle.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Ben.
In our next episode, we have a special series on applying for pupillage with some special guests. Please remember to subscribe, leave a review, and if you have any questions, then please send them to podcast@unit.law.
Thanks for joining us, Ben.
No problem at all. Thank you for having us.
Thanks, everyone.